Hello everyone, welcome to another one of our tutorials for Lab 4. This time we're going to be looking at how we go about doing our t-test calculations in Google Sheets. So thankfully, if you've by any chance look at like the Excel video that I made before, it's a very similar process. So we're just going to be doing this in a very similar way. Again, the three different things we kind of need, well, two only for the t-test calculation are the mean and a standard deviation, right? But we're also going to be calculating our standard error values for use in our plots later as well. If you look to the right here, of course, we have our degrees of freedom, 18, and we have our number of samples, 10, right? So this is all we need to get started, really. So first step, let's go ahead and calculate our averages again. So we use the average function. Function names are oftentimes shared between Google Sheets and Excel, which I find to be pretty convenient. It makes it a lot easier to kind of convert these calculations and learn how to do things in both systems, basically. But yeah, so there's our average, right? Our first average, we drag that down across all the rows to get the averages across um, all of our different components for treatment one. So I've just kind of copied and pasted all of the stuff that I had on the Excel spreadsheet into Google Sheets. You guys should be able to do the same. Usually it comes out formatted correctly. So for the standard deviation, we're going to do something very similar. STDEV, there's our function. And we do the same thing. We go ahead and we highlight the rows that we want to include in our calculations, and that's the value. So oftentimes, for longer decimals, Google Sheets will do this where it won't let you see like the whole decimal. But if you just highlight and click on the actual value, then it kind of shows up on top like that. So we do the same thing and we drag down so that we can get the values for all of our different components and all of our different morphs. And then let's round that out by doing our standard error calculation. So again, this is our standard deviation divided by the square root. So our function sqrt of the sample size. In this case, it's 10. So let's include that. And voila, we're pretty much done. And we can drag that all the way down to make sure all our cells get filled. Perfect. Now on to the actual t-test calculation. Again, the formula here is the difference between the means. So our comparisons are the green morph and the yellow-green morph for component one, or plant shoot length. So our first mean, again, being liberal with these parentheses so that everything's nice and organized. Our first mean subtracted from our second mean divided by the square root of our standard deviation, our first standard deviation, squared, divided by our sample size, again, manually inputting that so that we're able to generalize across all of our rows. So that's 10. And then we add, and it's the same thing as before. So we can just kind of highlight and copy and change the cell that we're looking at. So instead of 04, we'd be looking at 05 in this case. So make sure that all of our brackets are matched up properly. Looks like they are for the most part, or we want to make sure we have an extra one here as well. Probably isn't necessary, but just for consistency's purposes, we'll do that. But okay, so that is our calculation of the t-test statistic. And we press enter there, it gives us what the value is. Again, it's kind of messy, but if you actually click on it, you'll see that it's the same as what we got in our Excel calculations. So that's a nice confidence boost for us, I think. It's always nice when there's some consistency between the different methods that we use to calculate things. So again, we drag all the way down. And we have our different t-test statistics. Our first value, of course, for component one, our second value for component two, our third value for component three, and this fourth value, which we delete and disregard because that's not what we're looking at and doesn't really have any meaning. Okay, so again, very similarly, in order to do these calculations for all of our treatments, we're just going to copy all of these cells that are included in these four columns, right? So all the cells in these four columns, including all the rows, we go over to sheet two, which has our treatment two data, right? And then we paste those cells in there and it should do those calculations automatically for us. It may take a little bit just because it's quite a lot of cells, and also my laptop is notoriously slow. But there we go. Everything is inputted, and if we double check this with our Excel calculations, they will be the same. And so, again, nice little confidence boost for us. And we do the same thing for our third. You honestly probably don't need to select all the cells, just selecting the mean cell because it's the cell size is the same, so it's gonna autofill everything in pretty well for you, I think. Hopefully, when I was doing this before. Okay, yeah, it works perfect. Okay, so those are all your calculations that you need to do for lab 4, right? So basically copy these into your post labs using that table, right? That's on page 417. And that's pretty much all you need to do. I hope you guys find this useful. And of course, if you have any questions at all, reach out and I will help in any way that I can.